any weighting the height increasing measure here. So everyone Rick, problem solved.
There she is.
Yeah, here I am. Is it? Welcome everyone and good morning. Carly, thank you very much for playing that beautiful music. I'm Judy McDonald, and I want to welcome you to our Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Pottstown. What does it mean to be a Unitarian, especially a Unitarian Universalist? This is how the UA website defines it. We are a people of all ages, people of many backgrounds, people of many faiths. We are brave, curious, and compassionate, thinkers and doers. We create spirituality and community beyond boundaries, working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world. It is a theologically liberal religion characterized by a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unitarian Universalists do not share a creed, but are united in their shared search for spiritual growth and by the understanding that an individual's theology is a result of that search and not a result of obedience to an authoritarian requirement. So we welcome you here, everyone who has come, Zoom, in person, whoever you are, whoever you love. We are happy you joined us. So it is now the time for announcements, if anyone has any.
Hi, okay. Is this on? You can.
Well, mine is. I don't know about
Okay.
yours.
You're on.
Okay. This Saturday, November 6th, is the bonfire, okay? It looks like it's gonna rain again, so if it does rain, it's gonna be Sunday. But we already have the wood out there. John loaded it up, cut it up the other day, and it's all ready. You know, we're gonna get it all together. But 6 o'clock on Saturday or 6 o'clock on Sunday if we have rain on Saturday. Sending out emails.
Hey everyone, Fair Districts PA has put out preliminary maps for the redistricting, and if you haven't had a chance to look at them, you might as well, and make comment before November 7th when they will be submitted well, they've already submitted to the LRC, but these would be the final maps. If you have any comments, make them you can talk about it with me if there's something that disturbs you and you're not sure about, but otherwise you can leave it to it in the comment area that they give you on the website. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Miranda, and I just want to remind you that I'll be accepting contributions to the holiday recipe collection project until November 12th. And so if you have any favorite recipes, please send them to me. And Erica and I will assemble a nice collection for the holiday. Holidays.
I would now like to have the chalice lit, but I don't know who might be able to. Is that everyone? You know what? I gotta check that. Our opening words, A Community of Faith, are by Emily's mother, Reverend Judith Quarles. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a greater community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. And now Carly will play our opening hymn, 52, In the Sweet Fields of Autumn. Stop like halfway through. And is this working? Yes. I have to thank her Kay. I have to thank Kay. Kay, I emailed her for suggestions about books, and she got me all sorts of books. And I've actually changed it. She found one more for me on Friday, and I changed it for What's in Your Service. But I liked it a little best.
You have to stand closer to the mic, I think.
Okay. I'm used to doing that. Thank you. Grinning jack-o'-lanterns, crowds of clowns, monsters, fairy princesses, and space travelers trampling through crunchy leaves. A chilly breeze tickling the back of your neck. Choruses of voices yelling, trick or treat, and candy, lots of candy. That's Halloween. Ghosts, druids, and singers. Hilltop fires blazing against a black velvet sky. Murmured prayers in an old graveyard. That's Halloween too, the way it used to be. The story of Halloween begins over 2,000 years ago. At that time, the people who were known as Celts lived in Great Britain, Ireland, and northern France. October 31st was the last day of the year for them. They called it Samhain, which means summer's end. On Samhain, the Celts thanked the sun for their harvest and honored it with a fire ceremony. Each household put out the fire it had used for warmth and cooking during the previous year. The priests, who were called druids, rubbed dry oak branches together until they made sparks. The druids then used these sparks to light huge bonfires on nearby hills. Later, the head of each household would take embers from one of the bonfires home to start a new fire. There's all the priests. The Celts believed that their new fires, born from the bonfire's embers, would protect their homes during the coming year. But on Samhain itself, they counted on the bonfires for special protection. They believed that the ghost of everyone who had died during the previous year would come back as elves, fairies, or other scary creatures. No one wanted to feel a ghostly hand touch them as they slept. No one wanted an elf to snatch their hair or a fairy to sour their milk. And they also were worried that if they hadn't been good, maybe their relatives would take them back to the netherworld. So they let the bonfires burn bright and hoped that so much light would frighten the spirits away. In AD 43, the Romans conquered the Celts. The Romans held different beliefs, but they also celebrated a harvest celebration around October 31st. Their feast honored Pomona, their goddess of fruits. Since the Romans had just finished harvesting apples and nuts from the trees, they offered some of each to Pomona. This was their way of saying thank you and of encouraging Pomona to give them a good crop the next year. Of course, the Romans ate some of the apples and nuts too, but they used them to tell the future. In the years that followed, Christian missionaries came to the Celts and told them about a different God. Gradually, the Celts accepted the ideas about Christianity, and it became the main religion in Great Britain. In the 700s, the Roman Catholic Church decided that November 1st would be All Saints' Day to honor all the people who had died. This was the day after All Hallows Eve. Sorry, I'm just trying to... All Hallows Eve, which was shortened to Halloween, people visited the cemeteries and prayed for loved ones buried there. But the people in Great Britain still held on to some of their old ideas. Many, especially those who lived in the country, continued to believe that spirits wandered around on October 31st. In some parts of England, folks wandered from house to house begging for soul cakes, which are currant buns, or pennies. They sang, "If you haven't got a penny, a half penny will do. If you haven't got a half penny, God bless you." Not all of the old-time trick-or-treaters wanted soul cakes or pennies, though. Some of them would make mischief, and then they would say, "Oh, the spirits did it." Folks in Ireland also held on to some of the old traditions. Groups of people traveled from house to house asking for food or money, sometimes for the poor and sometimes for themselves. They promised good luck to the generous and trouble to the stingy. Well, but while some did all this in the name of St. Columba, which he was a Christian monk, others did it for Monk Ola, the Druid god. Instead of using regular lanterns to light up their All Hallows Eve, the Irish also often hollowed out large turnips, rutabagas, and potatoes, and they carved faces into them. In the 1940s, the potato crop died in Ireland. Potatoes were a big part of the Irish diet. Without them, many people didn't have enough to eat. Thousands decided to flee to the United States to begin their new lives there, but they brought their old traditions with them, including Halloween. The offering, which is taken to help sustain this fellowship and support the projects we have, will now be given. No, I didn't talk to John. This is now the time for sharing our joys and concerns, if anyone has them. My joy was Kay helping me with the library books. If you have any, please come up to one of the microphones and share with us. All right.
I don't think it would be too much to say that I have anxiety. I have anxiety about the election and about how everything is going. And I think we need everybody working to make things in some way, in whatever way you can do it, because this is really a mess. There are people that are trying very hard, you can see, but you know, who knows how it's going to turn out. I think we have to try harder.
I think all of us share your concern, Trish.
Hi, I'm John. I have a joy that, with the help of Harold Finnegan, the Darby Borough, we completed a Keystone grant request for the Darby Library, which is the oldest library in this country that's in continuous operation. Dates to 1875, I think.
That's great.
So, do this for a second. So, John, two things. One is, please notice that we have a larger platform on our lectern here. It's larger than it used to be, thanks to John, among others, to have made this. As one who has given sermons, I always found myself with a delicate balancing act of how I could get my paperwork there, my hymnal and other things without losing everything off the sides. So I think we'll all be beneficiaries of that going forward. The second is, last evening we were at a restaurant and the owner's two kids came in their Halloween costumes, twins of 7, and there were kids out in the street. It reminded me of the joy of those days, of the simple times of, yes, we get the UNICEF collections, and you had your bag, and you got in costumes, and you went from place to place. You did so actually without fear. Your parents didn't worry about you getting candy that might kill you with things laced in it. No one was x-raying our candy to make sure it was safe. And we went out on our own. No one feared us being taken away or stolen from the area. So I think of the past, but I also think of the present, and as we've discussed, hope for a better future.
Have a joy. Speaking of Halloween traditions, Friday night, my youngest granddaughter and I carved pumpkins, and you can see one of the products on the table at coffee hour. So enjoy.
Well, thank you for all your joys and concerns for them and for all the unspoken joys and concerns. We give you our thoughts. I invite you now to relax for meditation and silent reflection. Settle yourselves in your chairs, feet on the floor, eyes closed, and take a deep breath. I will be reading The Peace of Autumn, which is a reading, but I'll read it, by Rabindranath Tagore. Can you smell that wonderful autumn leaf aroma in the air? Today the peace of autumn pervades the world. In the radiant noon, silent and motionless, the wild stillness rests like a tired bird, spreading over the deserted fields to all horizons, its wings of golden green. Today the thin thread of the river flows without song, leaving no mark on its silent, sandy banks. The many distant villages bask in the sun with eyes closed, and in idle and languid slumber. In the stillness, I hear in every blade of grass, in every speck of dust, in every part of my own body, in the visible and invisible worlds, in the planets, the sun, the stars, the joyous dance among the atoms through endless time. My topic today is how religion has been influenced by superstition and vice versa. It is an incredibly immense subject, much bigger than I ever realized when I volunteered to do it. I could continue to research this forever and still not get to everything. So I pared my comments down to kind of meet the time here. And I have to ask you to forgive me if I don't touch on something you've heard about, you know about, or whatever. I didn't have the time here, but there may be a part 2 next year. So, Steven Pinker wrote an article called "Can You Believe in God and Evolution?" And it's a Time magazine article. And I quote, "It's natural to think that living things must be the handiwork of a designer. But it was also natural to think that the sun went around the moon. Overcoming naive impressions to figure out how things really work is one of humanity's highest callings." Albert Einstein said, "A man's ethical behavior should be based effectively on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment or hope of reward in the next life." So what I thought I would do first is just do a brief review of Samhain, which I've given topics on before. For the ancient Celts, as we saw in the book, Samhain, or All Hallows Eve, was the time of the year when you could see your dearly departed or not dearly departed relatives or friends. In Samhain, it was believed that the spirits of the departed needed to be satisfied to ensure that the people and their livestock survived the winter. Huge bonfires were lit, offerings of food and drink were left outside for them, and the souls of the dead were also thought to revisit their homes seeking hospitality. Feasts were had at which the souls of the dead kin were beckoned back to attend, and a place setting was put there at the table for them. Mumming, which was wearing masks, and guising, which is asking for treats, were part of the festival, and involved people going door to door in costumes or disguise, often reciting verses for food. Carved pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns were in fact originally made from turnips, gourds, whatever, and lit to guide the dead back to the earth, to the right dwelling. And the Celts also dressed in costumes, much as we do today, but they would have worn animal skins, masks, and other disguises because they didn't want to be recognized by the ghosts that were thought to be present. It was in these ways that such beings as witches, hobgoblins, fairies, and demons came to be associated with the day. As the legend goes, the spirits could visit this realm until dawn's first light, and then they had to return to their tomb another year. When the Romans finished conquering Great Britain in 43 AD, and in an effort to civilize the Brits, they learned and they started to match up the Celtic holidays to their own. In 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV established an All Martyrs' Day in honor of Christian martyrs. Pope Gregory III later expanded the festival to include the saints, which is how we get All Saints' Day on November 1st. It's funny how that aligned with the Celtic festival of Samhain on the last day of October into November. What is religion and what is superstition? The Oxford English Dictionary defines superstition as unreasonable or irrational or groundless awe, fear, notion of or belief about something unknown, mysterious, or imaginary, especially in regard of religion, religious belief, and practice based upon the fear or ignorance. In specific meaning, an irrational religious practice, a tenet, scruple, habit, etc., based on fear or ignorance. According to the OED, excessively credulous or widely held but irrational belief in or reverence for the supernatural or supernatural influences, especially as leading to good or bad luck, or practices based on beliefs, also constitutes a superstition. I have another, but that's getting long. Consumer behavior analyst John C. Moen finds dictionary definitions of superstition written poorly. He defines it as a belief or set of beliefs or practice which believe that specific actions can directly influence the avoidance of undesirable outcomes and or influence the occurrence with desirable outcomes. Factually, such beliefs are inconsistent with the scientific knowledge available within a culture, and the actions are not causally related to the outcomes. In 200,000 BCE, this is before Christ, the people of the African continent began migrating to all the other continents. This is the Paleolithic period. This was the beginning of our worldwide civilization, and it consisted of families, clans of human beings. These people were our ancestors, real, intelligent, people of equal worth, but less formally educated. Lacking any type of scientific knowledge, the world was confusing, threatening, and intimidating to them. What they tried to do is explain to themselves what their fantasies, their dreams, the world at large, earth, ocean, around them meant. They assumed that their thoughts, wishes, and desires controlled events. They superstitiously invented myths and fables that personified our common human unconscious mind. Vegetation, prey, weather, lightning, importantly, the zodiac, astrology. The zodiac was their clock, their calendar, their omen or fortune teller. Consequently, with their imaginations of our human ancestors, they invented and adversarial demons that, and all major religions have been influenced by and continue to be influenced by superstitions. I just don't have the time here to go through them all. Many people we would call religious also felt that played a large part in organized religion. Martin Luther, in his prelude to the Babylonian captivity of the church, called the papacy that fountain and source of all superstitions. And he also accused popes of superstition. For there was a bishoprics that had so few learned pontiffs. Only in violence, intrigue, and superstition has it hitherto surpassed the rest. For the men who occupied the Roman say 1,000 years ago differ so vastly from those who have since come to power. One is compelled to refuse the name of the Roman pontiff either to the former or to the latter. From the earliest days of civilization, the so-called religion of a religion, both pagan and Christian, used superstition to shock and awe their followers to keep them in their flocks and maintain power. Celtic priests were able to use geometry in their calculations of where there would be a solar or lunar eclipse or a comet or some other astrological event. And the Catholic priests and the hierarchy there also used guilt in order to donate or be paid very cheaply for their labors in building cathedrals. The observations and notations of planets, comets, and other non-normal heavenly events goes back through the millennia. The earliest known drawings of planets is in the Lascaux cave in France. That's been dated to be 15 to 17,000 years old, meaning that there were millennia before that of observations before these people knew that they could write them down there. There were lunar and solar observations were used in Babylonia, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and other civilizations. And they were used by priests or however their religious leaders were called to keep the people in line. Christianity was further complicated by a widespread practice of astrology, alchemy, forms of witchcraft. Throughout the medieval and Middle Ages, the church's position was actually that there were no witches, there were no warlocks, which is a male witch, that anyone who believed in this was delusional. That began to change after the publication of Malleus Maleficarum, and even witch hunts were quite rare until the Reformation. The fear of such practices can be gauged by the famous trials held in Salem, Massachusetts, and that's in the late 1600s. I actually have an ancestor who was convicted of being a witch. I don't know how she survived. She did. Obviously, I'm here. It could be she was a teenager, but it's in my family tree. Sir Francis Bacon, one of the leading figures of natural philosophy and in the field of scientific methodology in the latter part of the 16th century, wrote, "The general root of superstition is namely that men observe when things hit and not when they miss, and commit to memory the one and forget and pass over the other." Here are some superstitions that are with us right here, right now, that we do, that are all religiously based. We've all heard knocking on wood. That's Indo-European, Celtic, or British. I'm gonna have, because I'm getting on now, I have to start speeding this up. There was an old belief that spirits, good and bad, resided in trees, and they could be either called upon for protection or chased away by knocking on their home, and others, particularly Christians, linking the practice to magical powers of the wooden crucifix. Italians touch steel rather than wood, perhaps more related to iron horseshoes. Poles and Russians touch unpainted wood. Turks knock twice. Latin Americans knock on woods with no legs. I mean, chairs don't count. And you have to remember all this before you go traveling to make sure you get it right. Throw salt over your shoulder. This is European, Christian, ancient Roman. It's probably the most common superstition in the world, at least in the West. It involves tossing salt over one's shoulder. I didn't read that you had to do right or left, so I guess it doesn't matter. It's the superstition to ward off evil, in this case, the devil himself. In Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, Jesus' betrayer, Judas, is portrayed as having accidentally spilled salt. Since Judas was associated with doing something bad, the argument goes that so was salt, and throwing it over one's shoulder would blind the devil waiting there. Walking under a ladder. The superstition of not wanting to walk under the ladder also has Christian symbolism. The Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, leading to the number 3, is something sacred. The triangle with the 3 sides came to be regarded as sacred as well. The broken mirror. This started with the Greek myth of Narcissus, or the idea that the crack in the mirror would somehow break its charm or trap one's soul. Step on a crack, break your mother's back. As with mirrors, cracks in the earth or sidewalk or almost anywhere else have long been seen as portals into the realm of the supernatural, both for good and ill. To step on one of those cracks might be to invite or release unwelcome spirits to the world ready to do one or one's family harm. Lucky pennies. The idea that finding a lucky penny would also bring good luck originates in folk beliefs. In this case, based on the idea that metal, regarded by some ancient cultures as quite valuable, was sent by the gods to protect those who they favored. Lucky horseshoe. Another object commonly thought to be lucky is the horseshoe. The earliest origins of the horseshoe's function was a good luck charm. Resided in a female shape that the ancient pagans thought was related to the moon goddess Diana. The lucky horseshoe is part of a big Irish folklore and history tale. The story of St. Dunstan and the horseshoe varies greatly depending on where you look. But the gist of the story is that in the 10th century, St. Dunstan, which he was a blacksmith at the time, was visited by the devil himself. The hoofed devil asked for a horseshoe for himself. So then, Dunstan used iron nails to secure a red-hot horseshoe tightly on the one of his hooves. And the devil howled in pain. The devil begged for Dunstan to remove the hot shoe. He agreed under one condition. The devil must respect the horseshoe and never enter any place where one was hung above the door. Then there's Friday the 13th. Like the lucky number 7 for the Romans, magical significance has been attached to 13. The number 12 has been frequently seen as positive, 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 days of Christmas, 12 tribes of Israel. So the next number up was the negative one. And it just so happens, on Friday the 13th, in 1307, King Philip IV of France arrested and put to death hundreds of the Templar Knights. So that is not a good thing for them. Black cats, I've had many a black cat. They were in Egypt worshipped as gods. There was a papal bull by Pope Gregory IX calling them the incarnation of Satan, and therefore started their unfortunate history. Fingers crossed. Superstition of crossing one's fingers brings the lucky finger crosser good luck. It comes from pre-Christian pagan times in Western Europe. Over time, people realized that they didn't need a priest. They could simply cross their own fingers and bring themselves luck. And then there's the curse of the evil eye. That it's been a belief held in thousands of years, especially in the Mediterranean, that to achieve too much success would invite the anger or inspire the envy of the gods. Now, I must admit to you that I have my own superstitions. In the late 70s, I bought an Eagles long sleeve t-shirt, the old Kelly green with the spread wings. Every single time that I wore this, even at the game or at home watching the game or listening to it on the radio, they have lost. So I don't wear it on game days, and it's so scientifically based, but I won't wear the shirt. I'll wear it working around, but I don't want to jinx. They don't need any more help jinxing themselves. And then the Irish think things come in threes, and many other places. And I picked this up from my cousins, and so when something bad happens, usually I can find something bad real close to that, and then I search around. This is subconsciously, but I find myself doing it. I'm like, all right, what's the third one? Am I going to be safe? It makes no sense, and I do it. So, we tell yourselves, maybe we can talk about it at coffee or hour. Which ones do you have? So I'm going to start to wrap it up, but I wanted to tell you that there have been surveys done on all sorts of things. Back in 2014, they sent a survey out to all sorts of churches, I guess, and of the 2,000 people who responded saying that they were superstitious, a further survey was sent to them asking for their religion and what were their most common superstitions. So I'll just give you a few. I'm not going to read them all. But picking up and finding a penny is good luck. 40% of all Catholics believe this. 16% of atheists or agnostics believe it. It's bad luck for the groom to see the bride. 31% of Catholics believe this, and 17% of atheist agnostics do. The Protestants are in the middle at 25%. These are real things. 7 is a lucky number. 26% of all Catholics believe this. And it goes on and down here. But it's amazing. They're all different. And the ones who have the most superstitions are the Catholics. Then they have arranged superstitions. They have discovered that which part of our country is the most superstitious. The honor goes to the South. The least superstitious is the West. But the most that they usually do is throw salt over their shoulders, so they still protect themselves. Gender-based, men come out more than women for believing in women's beginner luck, but we women wish on the star much more than they do. Both men and women knock on wood equally as often. Breaking down by age groups, millennials are more likely to believe in luck, while Generation Xers are more superstitious, and they have a whole lot of them. Baby boomers, we baby boomers really hate the number 13. And of course, I'm always trying to hold stuff on Friday the 13th and all that. They've even done studies to see which are the most common superstitions of every state. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll tell you, Pennsylvania believes more than any other superstition that ladybugs will bring us good luck. So, regardless of how superstitious or not that you are, these theories and feelings, which have no scientific or actual basis, have influenced people, events, religions, governments, and history throughout time immemorial. We may try to prove to ourselves that we're rational by going against superstitious ideas, against the superstitious by adopting black cats, making sure we have events on Friday the 13th, or stepping on cracks intentionally while playing hopscotch, all of which I've done. I still hang up my horseshoe that my father gave me, and if you do this, you have to make sure that the horseshoe opening is at the top so your luck flows in. You don't want to do it upside down because your luck will all come out. Sorry, I have to get this in. And cross my fingers by throwing salt over my shoulders to make sure that my lucky rabbit's foot is in my pocket. And I actually do save all ladybugs, but it's not superstitious. I just don't want to see them die. I know I'll be protected from all the little ghosts and goblin snatchers tonight when they come around. So I would like to ask Carly now to play the closing hymn, number 80, Wild Waves of Storm. Over our heads, the great wheel of stars shifts. The autumnal or spring equinox manifests itself. And for one precious instant, darkness and light exist in balanced proportion to one another. Within our minds, the great web of neurons shifts, new consciousness arises, and for one precious instant, experience and meaning exist together as revelation and epiphany. Within our hearts, the great rhythm of our lives shifts. A new way of being reveals itself. And for one precious instant, the nexus of the body and the seat of the soul truly exist as one. Let us give thanks for those times in our lives when all seems in balance, for those times are rare and precious. The equinox shall pass, the revelation may be forgotten, and our actions will not always reflect our true selves. But through our gratitude, we may remember who we are, reflect on who we may become, and restore the balance which brings equanimity to our lives. So I would like to extinguish the chalice now, and maybe it will extinguish itself. Thank you. This is a blessing from God. May the light of your soul guide you. May the light of your soul bless the work that you do with the secret love and warmth of your heart. May you see in what you do the beauty of your own soul. May the sacredness of your work bring healing, light, and renewal to those who work with you and to those who see and receive your work. May your work never weary you. May it release within you well springs of refreshment, inspiration, and excitement. May you be present in what you do. May you never become lost in bland absences. May the day never burden. May dawn find you awake and alert, approaching your new day with dreams, possibilities, and promises. May evening find you gracious and fulfilled. May you go into the night blessed, sheltered and protected. May your soul calm, console, and renew you. Thank you for joining us today.